Okay, I just wanted to do a very quick demonstration of Panbox here. Someone shared this with me and I watched the walkthrough and my ears felt like they leveled up and I was just so blown away. I was like, let me try this thing and demonstrate what this would look like in a realistic scenario for your average person. So this is Panbox by JD Factory, and they have a really awesome walkthrough on their website. This is not a replacement video for that walkthrough. You should go watch the walkthrough because it's very detailed and very good. But what I wanted to do here was just show a demonstration of a real world scenario where maybe you're a classical composer or maybe you're a film score composer and you're working with a sample library. So you're working with a MIDI orchestra that you've arranged and you're trying to get a good mock-up of. You're not working with a real orchestra. And so what I have here is I have BBC Orchestra and I just have a few bars here of Give Me Jesus. It's a spiritual that I use this to teach orchestration with some students. And so I'm using it again because it's a very simple orchestration. It's a very real world scenario where you will get to hear the differences in Panbox so you can hear what I was hearing. So I'm not going to go through all of these settings. The settings are reasonably straightforward, but a little complicated at the same time. So this is really straightforward. This is just like true mono, left, right, stuff like that. You can go through the manual. Not even going to be messing with that today. So the rest of the things that I am going to be messing with is this width knob here. The width knob literally just gives you more stereo imaging, and it's the first in the chain, which is very important. But next is the tonal pan, smart pan, balance, and Haas pan. So I'm literally going to read the manual to you so you can understand the tonal pan. So the tonal pan offers a more natural pan. Unlike traditional panning methods that adjust the levels of left and right channels, tonal pan uses filters that pan high frequencies before low frequencies. This results in a more lifelike organic sound. So what that means and what that's saying is for any modern mix, basically, as we know, low frequencies generally should stay in the center channel and mids and highs should be on the side. And that's pretty standard across all mixing nowadays. Oftentimes you can achieve this on a mastering bus with things like using mid-side EQ, where you cut out the lows on the sides and maybe you boost them in the mids or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to get this to where the lows are not in the sides, but this tonal pan, it's implying that it does that on its own in an intelligent manner. And then you have smart pan. So smart pan borrows some of the logic from tonal pan, but goes further by introducing mid-side to the equation, resulting in an even more realistic stereo field in most situations. The algorithm preserves phase coherence as much as possible. This effect is 100% mono compatible and mono friendly. However, the benefits of smart pan might be more felt on wider sources. Smart pan preserves the side signal's integrity while doing most of its magic on the mid signal. This results in a preserved stereo field and reverb width. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to play through this. This orchestration is BBC Symphony Orchestra I'm going to do it with none of my additional reverbs turned on, so that we have the natural room reverb of BBC, which it actually is kind of a wet sample library. It's not the most dry, which I like. I like that it's got a little room in it. So we're going to do it without any additional processing there. I've got some standard processing on here, like compressors and stuff like that. But for now, you'll notice on all of my group channels here, I'm not panning anything. So there's no panning going on other than the pan that is naturally in the sample library, which is what many people doing orchestral mockups would have. Some people would adjust the panning a little bit anyway right here, but I'm going to demonstrate this with no panning whatsoever. So we're going to listen to this with no panning whatsoever. Then we're going to listen to it with Panbox on. So for reference here, the highs are going to be slightly left and the lows are going to be slightly right, which is generally how an orchestra is going to be. A lot of people are going to, like, winds are going to be slightly more center, but maybe like center left, and same thing with brass. And then maybe your tubas are a lot further right, and then your basses are really far right because they're on the front. Lots of, all the technicalities of how an orchestra could be arranged. But I have a general setup here to where my first layer of Panbox, I'm going to turn it on and off. The first layer is going to have the tonal pan, left for the highs and right for the lows, basically. And then the strings across the board will have slightly stronger panning because that's generally how strings go because they're at the very front. And so if you're going from the conductor position, That's true, even if you're from the audience position, really. And then that's going to be the tonal pan. The next layer is going to be the smart pan with the same settings. So it's going to be 40 and 55 for the strings, respectively. And then the next layer is going to be with the width turned up. Remember that the width, the stereo imaging, increases beforehand in the chain. That's going to be turned up, and we're going to be continuing with the smart pan. So the first layer is going to be, the first time I play through this, it's going to be nothing except for the natural sounds of BBC. Then it's going to be with the tonal pan on. Then it's going to be with the smart pan on. Then it's going to be with the width and the smart pan on. And then we're going to move on and talk about the Haas effect. So here we go. Now keep in mind, I tried to get a pretty average panning on that. Not too little, not too strong. When it's too little, it's hard to notice, and when it's too strong, it's just too much. So we're moving on to the smart pan now. Great. Now we're going to do Panbox with width at the beginning and then smart pan as well. Same smart pan settings, but we have width on as well. So this is what it's going to sound like with the width, the smart pan, and reverbs on it. So what's really interesting about that for me is I think that's actually too wide when you have the reverbs going. But when you don't have the reverbs going, it might be usable. But I think that's too wide of a signal being sent to the reverbs. So just something to consider. So now we're going to go to, I'm going to turn Panbox off, keep the reverbs, but I'm going to actually pan these a little bit, probably how I actually would if I was doing this. Pitch percussion can stay center, but I think typically back left a little bit is where it goes. And then let's do something, I don't want to do anything too harsh because I wouldn't normally do that in a real setting. So now this is Cubase's natural pan going into the reverbs. That sounds really bland to me. I don't know if that sounds bland to y'all, but in comparison to where we were at before, that sounds really bland. So let me show you what we've got going on at the end here, because this is important. I do have a little mini mastering chain going on here, and I do have a little bit of an imager for ozone. So same thing we already talked about. The lows are being cut a little bit, and the mids, mid-highs, and highs are all being boosted. Now, there's one more setting with Panbox, which is the Haas pan. So I'm not going to pretend like I fully understand Haas pan because it's a psychoacoustic effect, but I'll read to you what it says. So Haas pan achieved the Haas effect with a simple knob, delay one side of the stereo signal by a set number of milliseconds. When the fine mode is activated, the available range narrows from 0 to 30 milliseconds to 0 to 1 millisecond, allow for micro delay adjustments. So I'm going to just set this to the absolute max here, and I'm going to have it on the master so that you can hear the difference. So I will have it, I should have kept these. So let me here. I'm going to move these back a little bit. I'm going to have the Haas pan with basic Cubase panning on here. And then I'm going to have the Haas pan with the pan box and all of the other settings. Remember, these are post reverb because it is on the mastering chain where the reverbs are going. So this is with the Haas pan on it now, set to the maximum setting. And please note that that is pre-imager, so that's pre-ozone in my thing. And so this is everything together. So again, I think that's a little bit too much with the width increase and stuff on there. Like, I'm really hearing tubas and stuff on my right ear, and I think that's too much going on. But you can see how you can see the power of these different pan settings as opposed to just doing a normal pan in there. And I was really impressed with the walkthrough when I watched it. So watch the walkthrough, and I think so far, like, if I were to pick, my favorite setting would have been the smart pan into the reverb. I don't know if smart pan into the reverb with the Haas would still be the best, but just things to adjust, figure out, and mess with. It definitely sounds more lively than using the pans here or letting the natural pan sit, just be the natural pan that it is. Also, I believe this is on sale right now, so if you want to get it on sale, go ahead and get it. I'm not sponsored. No one gave it to me. I just thought it was really cool, and there wasn't a whole lot of information on it, and their walkthrough was really phenomenal, and so I wanted to do a video of a less professional setting with just a sample library to see what you can actually get out of it. I think it's probably a good purchase if you are doing a lot of orchestral stuff, and particularly if you're mixing a lot of orchestral stuff, because it really brings it up to the next level. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe. Let me know if you want to see other plugins and stuff. Cool. All right, bye.